we just assume San Francisco's going to get it right. They've got a lot of things they need to figure out, more than just getting bodies back. That will help, but the self-inflicted penalties, the turnovers, going backwards when they're in field goal range, it's just, there's a lot of things they got to fix.
Here we go, 46 yards for the win. And it's blocked! Oh my goodness, the Packers block it, and they're gonna win!
Brooks, 94, with the penetration right through the A-gap between the guard and the center. Gets his left hand up, the kick's a little low, and that fingertip is all you need.
We should have known when one of the first games of the day ended like that, with the Packers blocking a Bears field goal to sneak out of Soldier Field with a win at the buzzer. We should have known we were in for a hell of a day. And oh my God, y'all. We wake up every day. We talk about these weeks. We look at these matchups. We look forward to these Sundays in the hope that we will see something as good as we did in week 11 of this 2024 season. I am levitating right now, thinking about the ways in which week 11 delivered for us, the adoring fans of this game and this league, this dumb sport that we devote so much time to. When it delivers like that, it all feels so worth it. I mean, where do you begin? That was the start of the day. Packers Bears coming down to a blocked field goal at the end. The Steelers and the Ravens got into a back alley brawl at the same time. You had Geno Smith with a legacy drive for the ages to beat the 49ers. Josh Allen went Super Saiyan to not only take down the unbeaten Chiefs, but put his stamp on the MVP race. All of that just happened in the afternoon. At night, we've got Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow throwing haymakers at each other. Just an incredible day of NFL football. Even the blowouts were incredible. The Detroit Lions look like they're playing Madden on rookie mode. Bo Nix, welcome to the Rookie of the Year conversation, I guess. Easily the most incredible day of his young career. We will talk about his game against the Falcons. Did I miss anybody? I'm looking through my rundown here. Oh, yeah. Taysom Hill with one of the most unique and incredible performances I've ever seen. We'll talk about his day in New Orleans. Matthew Stafford woke up the echoes and got the Rams offense back on track. I can't keep up. I don't remember the last time I had this much fun watching the NFL. And there have been some really good Sundays, but this is what you dream about when you look forward to football season all year. Just a banger of a day. I'm going to need some time to process it. Fortunately, we're going to help you do that. We're going to walk you through the best of week 11. It's our Sunday 6. We got the 6 biggest storylines from an incredible day of football, going through what we think you need to know. And we'll start where we did at the top, a thriller between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers edged the Chicago Bears 20-19 on a blocked field goal. Second straight week, a dramatic game has ended with a blocked field goal. It's Carl Brooks who gets through the A-gap and gets his hand up to tip Cairo Santos' 46-yard attempt. The Bears played so well, so much turmoil. They fire Shane Waldron. Caleb Williams rebounds in impressive fashion. It looks like the Bears are going to get a statement win to get back to 500. And it is the exact opposite. Green Bay blocking a field goal. And as we relive this game, I think it's worth remembering what happened right before the Bears lined up for this potential game-winning field goal, because they had 35 seconds on the clock and a timeout when they ran their final offensive play of the game. it looked for all the world like they were either going to center the ball, have Caleb Williams move over and take a knee, or try to gain some yardage. I mean, Roschon Johnson had a nice day, DeAndre Swift as well. They could have gotten a little bit closer than 46 yards, even if only by a yard, maybe 3 yards at most. And the reason I bring this up is because Packers players said as much. Kalen Kaler of ESPN was in the Green Bay locker room, reported that several defenders were surprised that Chicago didn't really try harder to get closer. They just let 35 seconds tick off the clock and tried the field goal from where they were. I mean, I get playing it safe. Matt Eberflus is going to have to answer some tough questions if you fumble on that play, if you lose the ball, but it is interesting to hear the Packers say that. They also noted that they studied Cairo Santos's kicks on film and saw that he had a low trajectory. So it seems they felt really good about their odds of getting a hand on this field goal, and they do. They get to 7-3, which would be good enough to lead most of the divisions in football. It is good enough for third place in the mighty NFC North. We'll get to that later. If you're watching, you see the standings there. Just a stacked division from top to bottom. And how heartbreaking must it be to beat the Chicago Bears? Obviously, it's a bummer to lose at the buzzer no matter what. But this is the second time in the last month that the Chicago Bears have lost a game by a fingertip, basically. It's Carl Brooks's finger getting on this field goal on Sunday, and then all the way back in Washington, D.C., it's a tip of the finger that pops that Hail Mary up to Noah Brown for the game-winning catch by the Commanders, 2 fingertips away from 6-4. And instead, you're 4-6, which 4-6, not the end of the world in a lot of divisions, but in the NFC North, it feels like a death knell on your odds of making the playoffs. It is going to be an uphill battle for the Bears from here. And just thinking this out in the long term, think about how poorly everything went off the rails when they lost that Washington game. This was the first ray of light we've seen for Chicago since Noah Brown caught that Hail Mary, and it ends with another gut punch. It's going to be interesting to see how they get off the mat here, because it looked rough up until today, shockingly. Like I said, it's a bummer of a storyline for them that this looked for all the world like Caleb Williams' redemption story. He was phenomenal. 23 of 31, 231, used his legs as well as he has throughout his rookie season, 70 yards, several big conversions with his legs. It felt like that was going to be the story of the early window, was his redemption story after reports surfaced that maybe the Bears players wanted to bench him, or, he's being outplayed by all these other rookies. He was great. It just wasn't good enough. But enough about the losers. The Green Bay Packers do get the win. And I guess it's fitting that we start with the Bears, because the Packers almost felt like an afterthought in the second half of this game. You're keeping tabs on Steelers, Ravens, and all the other action going on. And it felt like every time I swiveled back to check in on Bears Packers, the Bears had the ball, and the stats bear that out. Green Bay had the ball for just 23 minutes in this game. They had to make the most of their opportunities when they had them, and they did. To credit them, Green Bay had 3 possessions after halftime. That's how good of a job Chicago did of holding on to the ball. They scored touchdowns on 2 of those, and they got all the way to the goal line on another one. Big turnover on downs in the red zone. And I guess that's my big critique of the Packers here, if I have one. Lot of talk about Jordan Love's crunch time decision making. You see it, turnover on downs in the red zone in the second half, and in the first half, a really nasty red zone interception, overthrows Tucker Kraft and gets picked off. A game-changing play in the first half that put Chicago in position to take the lead. But on the bright side, A, everything looks better after a win, no matter how dramatic. And B, man, was their vision for Christian Watson realized in the biggest way on Sunday afternoon. Watson, the enormously talented speedster, second-round pick a few years ago out of North Dakota State. He's been a solid player during his short NFL career, but I would say hasn't fully realized what the Packers wanted him to be. He had just 3 100-yard performances in his career heading into this game, and 2 of those came during his rookie season back when Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback. So plenty of room for improvement for the young guy, and he set a new standard on Sunday. I think we talk so much about, do the Packers need a number one receiver? Matt LaFleur famously said he hates that term. He doesn't agree with it. You never know which Green Bay receiver is going to pop off on a given week. Well, a new standard for Christian Watson. All 4 of his catches were explosive gains, finished with 150 yards, made arguably the game-winning play other than Carl Brooks's block, catches a 20-yard, a wonderful diving catch on a crossing route with 3.5 minutes to play. Smart enough, savvy enough to realize nobody touched him down after he dove, gets up, 40 yards of yak, a 60-yard catch and run that puts Green Bay in the red zone. Jordan Love finishes it off with a couple of runs to take that lead. So it is not surprising that Christian Watson was Tom Brady's LFG player of this game.
I mean, he just gave me a chance, and that's all I needed. And then at that point, I'm just thinking, I got to go.
Let's go.
My LFG player of the game is Christian Watson today. What a team performance. First of all, what were you feeling as Santos lined up for that game-winning field goal, watching from the sideline?
Honestly, I was throwing prayers up there left and right. Honestly, though, I had faith in our team out there. I mean, they were kind of kicking it low all game. We take a lot of pride in that PAT block, and I knew someone was going to get their paw up there, and we got it done.
You did, and I thought the biggest play of the game, obviously, was the catch and run there on the last drive for you guys. Tell me about that play, what you felt as you dived to caught that ball, and then to have the presence to get up and run with it and put your team in a great position there to score at the end.
Honestly, I didn't really like it at first. It's supposed to be a simple runaway play. I kind of got hemmed up at the line. I was anticipating the quick jam, but he still got his hands in my chest. So honestly, in my mind, I was just thinking, gotta get over there as quick as possible. And Tim put it in a perfect spot for me to get it. Honestly, I didn't know where he was. So I mean, he just gave me a chance, and that's all I needed. And then at that point, I'm just thinking, I got to go. So just get up and go, try to get as many yards as I can.
Yeah, you did. We always said that greatest thing a receiver does, get open, catch the ball, and run with it. You did all of it on that play. And the last question I have for you is, you talk about trust with Jordan, and he rolled out of the pocket there in the fourth quarter and gave you a chance in double coverage. You went up over the top of the strong safety and made a huge catch. Tell me about your connection with Jordan, the trust that he has in you. You guys have had that for a period of time, and how it continues to grow and develop.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're building each and every day. I mean, we take pride in trying to make the job as easy as possible for 10, and he tries to make it as easy as possible for us. But I mean, that's something that we build in and day out, practice, meetings, everything. So I mean, that's something that we take a lot of pride in. We're going to continue to build it, and we're going to try to get to that end goal and try to win a trophy.
Yeah, well, great job today against a division opponent. You're home next week against the Niners. Good luck in practice this week. We'll see you next Sunday.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Every game that I broadcast, I award the LFG player of the game to that one player who makes me say, let's go.
Green Bay's win, the highlight of another dominant week in the NFC North. And it's crucial because it keeps them on pace with Minnesota and Detroit, who show no signs of slowing down. The Vikings, a very routine 23-13 win over Tennessee. All you really need to know here is that Minnesota had a win expectancy of 70% or better from essentially the first quarter onward. Maybe not as dominant as you would prefer if you're a Vikings fan, but Minnesota had a multiple possession lead for most of this game. Never really felt like they were in danger. They get to 8-2. And then, of course, maybe not a dramatic game, but an emphatic game by the Detroit Lions, who keep doing video game things as this season goes along. Doesn't really register with me that Detroit beat a hapless Jacksonville team that wasn't starting Trevor Lawrence. I think everybody expected that to happen. The spread was 2 touchdowns. Even still, the Lions find a way to do it in jaw-dropping fashion. 645 yards of offense? Who does that? College programs don't put up 600 yards of offense, let alone NFL teams. 52 points, 7 straight touchdown drives, and then they kicked a field goal halfway through the fourth quarter after they had made their point. I mean, if you started a Detroit player in fantasy football this week, you probably won your matchup, because literally all of them scored more than 30 points. Just an insane day Detroit has now scored 50-plus points twice on the season. They have 2 of the 3 50-point games in the league this year. I love this stat. They only had 3 50-point games in their other 95 years of history. Dating back to the 30s, the Detroit Lions had only managed to do this 3 times, and now they've done it twice in the 2024 season. I was curious, if you're keeping score at home, the NFC North went 3-1 on the day. Obviously, somebody had to lose because Green Bay played Chicago, but 3-1 as a division. And we went back and looked it up. As a whole, the NFC North has won 3 games in 6 different weeks this season. No signs of slowing down from anybody. The only thing that's going to slow them down is each other. And God bless the NFL schedule makers for what they have put in front of us. We talked last week. Green Bay was Chicago's division opener. They got 5 more of these to play. There are plenty of other division games coming too. Thanks to that backloaded schedule, there's an NFC North matchup every week for the rest of the year, and obviously twice in week 18 when all division opponents play each other. Going to be a lot of NFC North football happening. And I mean, look, Green Bay's in 3rd place right now, but when division games start coming every week, you could see some real movement in the standings. But until then, they just continue to rack up wins against everybody else. Let's see how they do now that they'll be playing each other on a much more regular basis. The NFC North might be the best division in football, but I know which one I think is the most fun. That would be the second item on our Sunday 6. Let's dive into the wild NFC West, which saw another banger of a day highlighted by the late window game between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle hasn't been able to get past San Francisco for 3 years. It's been a lopsided rivalry for a minute at this point. Not right now. They make an emphatic statement in Santa Clara on the road. Seattle 6.5-point underdogs, and Geno Smith marches them 80 yards for the win in the final 2 minutes to get to 500, to knock the Niners down to 500. All of a sudden, the entire NFC West is within a win of each other. Arizona got to be sitting back and laughing. They took the week off and are sitting pretty at 6-4, leading the division. Don't laugh too hard, though, Cardinals. You've got Seattle next week, and a slip could send you pretty far down the standings. Arizona is in 1st place, and depending on results next week, could see themselves down in the mud for last place. That's how close everything is in this very wacky division. But man, let's circle back to just an incredibly fun game between the Seahawks and the 49ers. I'll be honest, I didn't have high expectations. San Francisco has had Seattle's number for 2 or 3 years at this point. You can typically count on them to pull away and win these games by 12, 14, 18 points. Geno Smith found a way, and that's where I wanted to start when I caught up with Greg Olsen and Joe Davis about this one. Well, guys, I feel like I just watched a 12-round boxing match, to be honest with you. I mean, we saw what Geno Smith did at the end of this game, but what does it say about his resiliency that he hung in there long enough to make those plays? Because this was a difficult day at the office for a lot of this game.
Well, if you tell me it's going to be a 12-round boxing match and I get to pick my quarterback, I might pick him.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he just never flinches. I mean, things all season just haven't always gone his way. Couple bad throws, couple tip balls, sacks. He's had pressure in his face all day, all season, and it just doesn't matter. He gets the ball down to go 80 yards for the win against one of the better defenses, one of the best teams in football the last 3-4 years. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, he needed to get this win for a lot of reasons, keep their playoff hopes alive. He had been 0-5. He's been hearing about that for a long time. So this one has to feel good. This can be a fun plane ride home for the Seattle Seahawks.
Joe, at the end of the broadcast, I thought you nailed it. You described the NFC West as a mess, and that is exactly what it looks like right now. I mean, how entertaining is this going to be? This looks like it'll be one of the most fun division races in the second half of the season.
Well, going into the game, it was why Seattle felt like they were still alive, even though they lost 5 of their last 6 games. They win this game, and it's wide open. I mean, you got the Cardinals there with a 1-game lead, but I don't think anybody thinks they're running away with it.
Oh, I'm not sure at this point if you could bank on anybody running away with it. I think leading into today, the assumption, just because of what we know from years past, is you just assumed San Francisco was going to grab hold of the division, continue to get bodies back, McCaffrey and whatnot, but it just looks like we're living a little bit of like revisionist history here.
Yeah.
Like we're just living in the past where, we just assume San Francisco's going to get it right. They've got a lot of things they need to figure out, more than just getting bodies back. That will help, but the self-inflicted penalties, the turnovers, going backwards when they're in field goal range, it's just, there's a lot of things they got to fix.
This is going to be a thrilling race. And thanks to this win, thanks to Geno Smith, the Seahawks are very much a part of it. Guys, this was a ton of fun. Thank you as always.
All right, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I can't help but think back to what Greg and I talked about previewing this game, which is basically that it's a dangerous and difficult place to live, putting this much on Geno Smith's plate every week. But that's what the Seahawks have to do to win games. And half the time, it works out. Maybe they can develop a little bit more consistency, an inspired game from the Seahawks defense to give Geno Smith this chance. I mean, Devin Witherspoon looking like the guy who was a Rookie of the Year candidate last year, 8 tackles, 3 pass breakups, made life really difficult on Brock Purdy. Julian Love had a really active game. If Seattle's defense can do this on a regular basis, it's going to give Geno Smith more opportunities. Because remember, there have been some games where Seattle just simply couldn't keep up as their defense surrendered points. Did not look like the case in Santa Clara on Sunday, at least. But I just go back to Geno because the stats don't look particularly impressive. He didn't even throw a touchdown in this game. But the way that he can deliver in these moments it's so impressive. He dropped back 38 times against San Francisco. And it is worth noting the Niners lost Nick Bosa toward the tail end of this game. I think that made a huge difference on the game-winning drive. But even still, the way he hung in there, sacked 4 times on the day, hit another 7 times. Seahawks had another fumbled snap because that's just what they do, I guess. Connor Williams retired last week, so they're once again dealing with shuffling on their offensive line. Story of the last 5+ years for Seattle. But more often than not, Geno Smith can circumvent all of that. And yeah, he is good for an interception or 2 because of the amount of times the Seahawks are asking him to drop back and throw. But that game-winning drive was some of the most riveting TV you'll see all season in the NFL. Converted 2 third downs. Jackson Smith and Jigba continuing to grow into the guy we thought he was when he was drafted. Caught 10 of 11 targets all over the field too, not just in the slot. 110 yards, such a safety blanket. A guy that Geno knows is going to be open on money downs. Really enjoy watching this team play, even if they are a flawed team. And it spoiled a really fun day for Jawan Jennings. I want to make sure I shout him out. Looking like the best offensive player on a loaded San Francisco team. Picked up the slack with George Kittle sitting out of this game. 10 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. Almost looked like he was going to drag the Niners over the finish line. Instead, it's Geno Smith. This was the NFL at its best. Like I said, using the boxing analogy from earlier, just felt like 2 fighters trading haymakers, trading rib punches for round after round, and then Geno Smith gets the knockout punch. Such a fun game, and we talked about it just now with Joe and Greg. It's going to be a hell of a fight to the finish in this division. The Rams kept pace up in New England. Not the prettiest game you saw all day Sunday, but Matthew Stafford, goodness gracious, did he have a resurgence after a sloppy Monday night loss to Miami. Throws 4 touchdowns and almost 300 yards as the Rams get a 28-22 win against the New England Patriots. Adam Amin and Mark Sanchez were on hand for that as I caught up with them about the Rams getting back to 500. Well, guys, I know the Patriots' record isn't great, but that is a very good defense that Matthew Stafford shredded today. What do you think was the biggest key to him getting back on track?
Well, I think the 2 turnovers early on, it was the sack fumble and that young defensive line from the Rams making it tough on Drake Maye, and then jumping right back in the driver's seat on offense, scoring on the immediately on the next play. Matthew Stafford handled cover 0. He handled all-out pressure and kept his team afloat. You could tell that's their formula. Let number 9, 16 years of experience, handle everything.
I think there's a big difference from what the Patriots saw a week ago when they were in Chicago. Young quarterback, Caleb Williams, a little rattled. An offensive line that's been kind of in flux. Then you have an offensive line in flux in L.A., but it's a veteran quarterback. Stafford's seen every blitz. He's seen every coverage. He's seen just about every disguise. And for a team that likes to bring pressure and try to disguise things, felt like he had a lot of solutions early in this game.
I know Drake threw the pick that wound up ending this game there on the late rally attempt, but y'all having had a chance to lay eyes on this guy, I mean, Drake Maye, I am so excited about where this guy's career is heading. What did you see from him today?
Yeah, very impressed. I know this was the first chance that you had to see him in person as well, and I feel like the command, much different than what maybe you and I watched on film from his first couple of starts, and certainly from what we saw early in the year when he was just stepping in garbage time.
Exactly right. He looks like a completely different player, and you have to credit the offensive staff and mainly AVP Alex Van Pelt. He's seen a lot of football, played a lot of football, and coached a lot of football, and it's really transforming this young kid at a high rate. I mean, he is making strides each week, and you see it all over the tape. Plus, what people don't understand is how fast this guy actually is. He's got a game speed to him. He's competitive. I love his demeanor, and he's just been steady all the way through. He'll clean up some of those little mistakes like at the end of the game, but this kid's got a bright future. I'm excited about him.
Yeah, you earned some respect from Matthew Stafford today, a guy he said he grew up watching and looking up to.
Really excited for the big picture in New England, but it is the Rams that get the win, and they have got a big one next week against Philadelphia. Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you as always.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
So many similarities between all of these teams in the NFC West, and I think basically it's that they are all very flawed teams that can be held together by fantastic quarterback play. I mean, you see what the Rams look like when Matthew Stafford is dialed in with both of his receivers available, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua balling out against New England on Sunday. We just talked about Geno. We know what Kyler Murray is doing in Arizona. And Brock Purdy, I would say, not getting enough credit for how well he's playing in San Francisco, which is ironic given how much oxygen he took up last season and how much we talked about him during the Niners run to the number 1 overall seed last year. He's still playing phenomenal football. You're just seeing so many miscues biting the 49ers when I would argue they shouldn't. Shout out to my colleague, former co-host Emmanuel Acho. The Niners have had so many miscues, as he points out, in the final minutes of games. They lose to Matthew Stafford and the Rams on 2 plays inside the 2-minute warning. Kyler Murray puts together a 14-play game-winning drive against them when Arizona won in Santa Clara earlier this year. Now Geno Smith gets 80 yards on them in 11 plays. It's worth pointing out that Nick Bosa did miss that time, like I said, but this defense has let so many leads slip in crunch times of games. I mean, it's easy to argue the 49ers are half a dozen plays away from being 8-2. And instead, they are 5-5, and the schedule does not lighten up. We talked about that last week. It's Green Bay up next. It's Buffalo after that. There's a Lions game and another game against Arizona still on the schedule. The Niners have missed, I don't want to call them layups, but the Niners have missed opportunities that I'm going to guess they'll regret when you look at the murderer's row that awaits them at the end of November and into December. I still think there's enough talent on that team that they can weather the storm, but my confidence is waning by the week as these results continue to go against them. Tough news for Niners fans, but it leads to some drama in the NFC West. And man, on the list of things I'm excited about heading in to the tail end of the season, this race for the NFC West is right up at the very top. Third item on the Sunday 6, one of the other marquee matchups of the week saw the reigning Super Bowl champ, the 2-time MVP, going against his biggest rival in the AFC, Chiefs at Bills. delivered on all of the goods. This is Victory Unlocked. It's brought to you by Zillow. Agents, tours, loans, homes. And yeah, I'd say the Buffalo Bills unlocked a victory with the aggressive mindset by Buffalo head coach Sean McDermott that you don't give Patrick Mahomes a chance when you can put him away. They go for it on fourth down late in this game. Josh Allen delivers with a scintillating touchdown to put this out of reach. I think that's how you've got to play it against Patrick Mahomes. And I want to talk about that with somebody who was there to see it play out. Henry McKenna was in Orchard Park for a game that delivered on all of the hype. Henry, I got to know. I know everybody in Buffalo knows that this is not the end of the road, but when Josh Allen broke those tackles and scored that touchdown, I mean, that place must have lifted off the ground.
Yeah, when Amari Cooper was asked about that run, he just started shaking his head. Like before he could answer, he just was like, that was crazy. And, that was sort of the resounding sentiment in the Bills locker room, was even they couldn't really believe it. And then they were like, but then again, it's Josh Allen. So we can absolutely believe that's what he did. That's what he does. So yeah, now Josh Allen is 4-1 in the regular season. And the thing you were alluding to, which is still sort of the unfortunate monkey on the Bills' back, is that they're 1-3 against the Chiefs in the postseason. And even Rasul Douglas said exactly that, right? Like that this is an important win for them in the regular season. It's going to come back around and they got to do it again in the postseason. And I think they picked up the audio of the handshake after the game. And I believe Mahomes told, Josh Allen, see you again later this season. So it was probably meant to be friendly, but if that's also not a threat, I don't know what is.
I was
between these rivals. Yeah.
I was very struck by the Chiefs' demeanor. Obviously, I mean, you never want to lose, but the winning streak ends at 15 games, and the Chiefs are the last unbeaten team. I think I even saw like Travis Kelce was applauding as he jogged off the field once the game was over, and it's got to be nice as a Chiefs player, Chiefs fan, to fall back on the idea of like, yeah, we'll be there when it matters. Don't worry about us.
Yeah, that's what they've been. That's how they're going for a three-peat. I kind of think that this is good for them, taking a loss now. Look, undefeated seasons are intense. Like it kind of goes without saying, but think about the Patriots going for their undefeated season. It takes a tremendous amount of psychological, physical strength to get through it, to want to win every single game, to never give up in the fourth quarter, right? Like things get out of hand, things get lopsided. Sometimes you pull your starters, as many playoff teams did this week, right? And the guys come off the field. That doesn't happen in a perfect season. And so you see fatigue come into play. And that's not going to happen, I don't think, as much for the Chiefs now. I think that they have sort of that liberation of, okay, realistically, they're probably going to finish number 1 seed in the AFC. They probably will still get their bye, but they don't have to worry so much about being quote unquote perfect. They can just focus on what is already a tremendously and challenging and historical achievement that they intend to pursue, which is the three-peat. That alone is a massive undertaking, right? So to kind of tack on an undefeated season as something that they're pursuing or interested in, like I think that's a lot. And I think it's probably a bit of a relief for them to get this one off the books and say, we took the L and we'll move on. We're a good team.
I completely agree with you, and I'm not worried about the Chiefs at all. But it is interesting to me. I mean, Sean McDermott is such a good defensive coach, and this Bills defense just keeps finding ways to get it done. They pick off Patrick Mahomes. That's not even that surprising. Obviously, Mahomes has had an interception issue this season. But the Bills held Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins combined to like 35 yards in this game. And it does reinforce the idea that against top-tier competition, do the Chiefs have enough juice on offense? Like it looked like it was going to be Xavier Worthy early in this game. He disappeared pretty quickly. I don't think worry is the right word, but this has been a bit of a theme for the Chiefs, and the Bills were able to take advantage of it.
No, I mean, you and I have been talking about this for, weeks. I don't know, like the whole season. This is what they are right now. I think ultimately we keep saying, oh, their identity is going to change. Oh, isn't it going to be scary when the offense actually steps up? Now I think we can start to ask, are we sure this offense is going to step up in the way that we expected? Or is this just who the team is, right? Like Bill Belichick and even Andy Reid sort of, I think, abides by this philosophy, which is that like teams tell you who they are by Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving is fast approaching, and we've not seen this offense step into a dominant gear. We have seen the defense do it in that sort of sixth gear, so to speak, but the offense, I would not say as much. And we saw it in the second half. Xavier Worthy was as good as he was in the first. He was completely, a ghost in the second. Travis Kelce didn't step up, which has been his MO in their games, particularly in the last 3 weeks, is, he becomes a high volume target for Mahomes. He's, I think, averaging just like 6.7 yards per carry going into this game, which is down, or per reception, which is down from like 12 on his career. Like it's a massive decrease in production, but he's still sort of churning away at defenses with that volume. We didn't see that tonight. Like he was completely absent. And then, as you mentioned, DeAndre Hopkins not getting involved. So that left them without an offense in the second half outside of Kareem Hunt. That left them with a 9-point deficit in the final score line. So that's what they're going to spend the next few weeks figuring out is like, they kind of thought that it was inevitable. And I don't think it's that. There's still a lot of work to be done for the Chiefs. They can't just, I guess they can kind of just Patrick Mahomes their way.
That's what they've been doing. It's what they've been doing.
Yeah. But I still think that to get their way to the Super Bowl again, which is their ultimate goal, they have some refiguring to do.
We'll see what happens with them. Fortunately for the Chiefs, their schedule eases up a good bit. It's Carolina and Vegas up next, so plenty of opportunity for them to work on themselves. Let's make sure we're giving the proper amount of shine to the man of the hour, though, because I've been joking on the show for a few weeks. Josh Allen has been hanging out in the background of the MVP conversation. He somersaulted his way into the forefront with that touchdown run specifically, but even aside from the game, from the run, just a phenomenal game from him, even with a boneheaded interception. Got the ball to 7 different players, got Curtis Samuel involved for the first time, Khalil Shakir again. This was the experiment, right? We were going to see if Josh Allen could elevate a cast of characters after Stephon Diggs left. And boy, is he ever, Henry.
Yeah, absolutely. Think back to my MVP pick from the preseason. Who do you think I selected? Think about who I had picking the Super Bowl this year. I had Bills over Lions. I had Josh Allen winning the MVP. Why? Because his supporting cast has been largely underwhelming. They did acquire Amari Cooper since, I made that prediction, but he's done such a good job at bringing this wide receiver group up to speed. I talked to Dawson Knox after the game in the locker room. I asked him exactly this, like, how is Josh doing this? He doesn't have a Travis Kelce. Like Pat Mahomes has had his whole career. Like Stephon Diggs is gone. How does Josh Allen, really bring this offense together in the way that he's done? Dawson said, that more than ever this year, Josh is pulling people aside. He has one-on-one meetings with his receivers to get their sense of preferences on routes, to get their timing down. So this is on and off the field. Josh is really taking command of the offense. He's building chemistry, not just in the way that we think of, watching guys at practice, throwing the ball around, taking guys out to dinner. No, Josh Allen is sitting in meeting rooms one-on-one with guys like Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, Ty Johnson, Amari Cooper, Curtis Samuel. Every one of those guys getting FaceTime with their quarterback. Every one of those guys is getting a sort of individualized Josh Allen experience. And that's why you're seeing 11 touchdowns from different pass catchers in this offense. That's why you're seeing him spread the ball around. That's why they figured out how to make it work without Stephon Diggs.
Turns out a lot of people overthought this. If you have number 17, you can make a lot of things happen, even if your skill talent takes a step back. I'm curious, like I said, everybody knows to say the right thing. Sean McDermott said it after the game. This was not a statement. Josh Allen said, this is a week 11 game, and we all know that the Bills' ultimate test will be in the postseason. But how do you think how well do you think they compartmentalize this? I mean, San Francisco's up next. That'll be a big game. You can't really afford a letdown. Do you think the Bills will practice what they preach and not make too much of this, even if it was such a fun and such an impressive win?
It's tough to say. I do think that there was a lot of energy, a lot of positivity in the locker room when we were talking about that final play, the Josh Allen touchdown run. But otherwise, it wasn't like they'd won the Super Bowl. It wasn't like that they were making this a milestone victory. Guys were going about their job. I talked to Christian Benford after the game. You know, he wasn't happy or satisfied with the way he played. He said he's probably going to take, tonight to like be with his family, but tomorrow he's going back into work. Imagine it's a victory Monday for the Bills, so they're not required to be in the facility, but Christian Benford's going to be there. So I think that there's a sense of accountability. I think there's a sense of this team is still building, and I did not get the sense that they were feeling like they should mark this as some sort of crowning achievement. It's merely one step along the way to hopefully dethroning the Chiefs, not just in, the playoff seeding, but the playoffs themselves.
I hope so. All I want, I don't care if it's the divisional round or the AFC title game, but we need another installment of this matchup quickly becoming the best rivalry in the NFL today. Another banger on Sunday. Henry, thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
The fourth item on our Sunday Six is a game I wasn't expecting to talk a ton about, to be honest with you, but it was big enough that we thought it merited its own conversation. Maybe the most impressive result of Week 11, and that would be Denver smacking the Atlanta Falcons 38-6. And no, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I know all of the impressive results that happened around the NFL. Bills get a big win over the Chiefs. Steelers make a statement in the NFC or the AFC North. We talked about the NFC North and all the impressive things happening there. I saw a lot of outcomes happening here between the Broncos and Falcons. Not even surprised Denver won. They were favored to win this game at home against Atlanta. But to beat them 38-6 in what you have to describe as Bo Nix's true coming out party, and it was an incredible day from Bo Nix. We can get into that in a minute. First, let's hear it from the guys who were there. Kevin Kugler and Moose Johnston had a front row seat to a show courtesy of Bo Nix.
Never in doubt in Denver. Broncos win at 38-6. But the real story today, Daryl, is going to be the continued growth of rookie quarterback Bo Nix, his first of, I'm assuming, many 300-yard games in his career.
Yeah, a lot of milestones today and kind of doing things in his rookie season with the likes of Peyton Manning and Dak Prescott and some really good quarterbacks that have come before him. I think for us, having the opportunity to see the Broncos in Week 5 and then come back in Week 11 and see a guy that's just completely different, and he's grown from week to week, I think Sean Payton has done a really, really good job of bringing him along in a comfortable fashion. And today we saw some throws from Bo Nix that we wouldn't have seen in Week 5. And that's just kind of that confirmation that we're doing things the right way with his development.
It's funny. I actually remember talking to Kevin and Moose about Bo Nix a month and a half ago after Denver got an impressive win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we noted in that game that even in a winning performance, there was so much growing for Bo Nix to do, being comfortable in the offense, being comfortable making different types of throws. And yeah, through the first 2 months of the season, clearly Denver can win with a rookie quarterback under center. They were 500 coming into this game. They got 5 wins. But it was so much different than what we saw against Atlanta. Like typically a winning performance from Bo Nix was converting a couple third downs, using his legs, making smart decisions, and generally staying out of the way while Denver's defense and the rest of the team got the win. That is not what happened here against the Atlanta Falcons. You see the stats there if you're watching. 28 of 33, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. The counting stats are cool, but you can take it to the advanced metrics too to see just how well this guy played. Bo Nix, top 5 in the league in success rate for Week 11, second in EPA per dropback. Only Jared Goff was adding more value to his team's performance every time he dropped back than Bo Nix. First in completion percentage In fact, stat courtesy of my guy Andrew Mason, who covers the Broncos, Bo Nix, the first rookie quarterback in NFL history to throw for 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 300 plus yards, and a completion percentage above 80% in an NFL game. And you remember some of the things Jaden Daniels was doing early on in the season. So for Bo Nix to surpass that is quite an accomplishment. 38 points. I was curious because you can dig into this as much as you want to. And it's fair to say, I mean, Sean Payton is a fantastic play caller and an excellent coach. He knows how to put a rookie quarterback in position to succeed. Bo Nix did throw 12 passes behind the line of scrimmage. The Atlanta Falcons, not much of a clue on how to defend a tunnel screen or a wide receiver screen, I would say. Yeah, there were some advantageous things happening here for Bo Nix. I also noted Denver finished with more than 200 yards of yak, 212 yards after the catch. Atlanta's defense banged up, had a rough day, but even still, this is not fake. This is not box score watching. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the clip of Bo Nix throwing to Devon Vele right before the 2-minute warning in this game. Just one of the most gorgeous throws of the weekend. Just fantastic anticipation, breaking over the middle of the field. He was doing that stuff too. On balls that traveled more than 10 yards, he was 6 of 7 for 138 yards and a touchdown. So there were some very real big boy throws in this game as well. And even if Atlanta is not the best defense in the NFL, this was a performance that makes you feel like you can hang your hat on Bo Nix continuing to develop as a fantastic quarterback. He was a guy that helped you win in previous games. This is a guy that you can build a team around. That is what he looked like. So impressive. I hate to say it was surprising, but this was not in the outcome of events that I saw coming. Like I said, easy to imagine a world where Denver wins this game, but for their rookie quarterback to play at an all-pro level in an outright demolition, even in a week where so many other important things happened, this made me sit up in my seat and take notice. I see you, Bo Nix. I see you, Denver Broncos. I don't think it was our intention on Sunday morning to talk so much big picture with divisions, but on an incredible jam-packed day like that, you almost have to fit it all in. There's so much going on. So with the 5th item on our Sunday 6, let's recap a frenetic day in the AFC North. And we got to start at the end. The NFL flexed Bengals Chargers into Sunday Night Football for a reason. And oh my gosh, did it deliver. We wanted to know more about the LA Chargers. We might have learned too much as they get a bit of a statement win over Cincinnati, 34-27 on Sunday night here in LA. Such a fun game. And it honestly felt like 3 different football games at once, because the first half was an emphatic coming out party for LA. Oh my God. It looked like they were ready to march to the Super Bowl the way they jumped out to a 24-6 lead in this game. Justin Herbert, the guy's been good his entire career. He's probably overly criticized, but even as much as I like him, I don't know that I've ever seen him as dialed in as he was at the start of this game. Looked like a cyborg sent from the future to take over the earth in the first half against the Bengals. Just every other throw was a laser. He's scrambling for chunk gains as a runner because he's way more athletic than people realize. I mean, he's basically a more low-key version of Josh Allen. But I don't know if people realize that. Well, if you watch the first half of this game, you know now. Then we get to our second act, which was when Joe Burrow just blacked out and took over the middle third of this game, looking like Steph Curry, honestly. That's what it reminded me of. When Steph gets in that mode for the Warriors where every shot's going in, he doesn't even have to watch it fall. He knows it's going in. He's putting up 3 after 3, like gold medal game in Paris, Steph Curry. That was Joe Burrow for a solid half hour in the second half of this game as he drags the Bengals back from a 27-6 deficit to tie it 27-27 early in the fourth. Every time the ball left his hand for, like I said, a solid half hour, you just knew it was going to be complete. You knew Jamar Chase or T. Higgins was going to be on the other end of it. Those guys both went absolutely unconscious as well, as you might expect. This was the Bengals at their preseason Super Bowl favorite best, sitting there saying, how is this team below 500 if they're capable of playing like this for stretches? And then we remember, because the last 10 minutes of this game just devolved into the goofiest bullshit imaginable. The Chargers trying not to charger. They squander a 20-point lead. They're trying desperately not to relive that embarrassing Jacksonville playoff game that everyone and their mother was talking about on social media during the fourth quarter. The Bengals are trying to claw their way out of it. They missed 2 field goals. Evan McPherson having a rough night for the Bengals. Actually, the entire AFC North. We'll talk about kickers in this entire division in a minute, because with one exception, a forgettable day for the kickers in this division. Evan McPherson going to have an uncomfortable week, if I had to guess. 2 chances to put the Bengals ahead, 30-27 in the fourth quarter. Finally, Herbert gets the ball back with a chance to erase the chargering narrative, and he does. He hits a laser to Ladd McConkey down the sideline for a chunk gain, 27 yards to get to the Cincinnati 30. Then J.K. Dobbins with an insane 29-yard touchdown run, breaking tackles left and right. It was bad enough defense by the Bengals that made me wonder if they were letting the Chargers score so Joe Burrow could get the ball back, which he did. And honestly, the Bengals threw to the end zone with a chance to tie the game and had a shot at it. Derwin James comes in with a dramatic breakup. I don't know at this point. I'm recording this late on Sunday night, having watched one of the best weeks of the entire season. This might have been the game of the day, or was it Bills Chiefs, or was it Seahawks 49ers, or was it Bears Pack? I don't know, but this was an incredibly fun game. The Bengals fall to 1-6 in one possession games this year. It's not hard to imagine a world where they're 9-2 and sitting on top of the division. And instead they are 4-7. They're not mathematically out of it. They're still in the wild card race, but doesn't it feel like we've said that after half the Bengals games this year? I don't know. Something's got to give. There's something lacking from this team in terms of killer instinct, in terms of defensive execution, to be sure, in terms of coming through in the clutch. It's mind-numbing. But that is not the LA Chargers problem. We said this was a chance to make a statement. Even with the Bengals being under 500, this was still a better class of opponent than they've gone against. And the Bengals did become the first team to score more than 20 points on Jesse Minter's defense, but who cares? Justin Herbert, one of the most memorable games of his career, in my opinion. Defense coming through when it mattered most. The Chargers at 7-3, very much, in my opinion, a real deal team, a playoff. I guess you got to call them a threat because the Broncos are right there behind them, but they're sitting in the 5 seed in the AFC right now. Just a wacky game, a fun game. That is the Jim Harbaugh effect. It was scary, but they did avoid a chargering, and I think you got to give Jim Harbaugh some credit for that. What a night for the LA Chargers getting to 7-3. And it was only the second half of the day, because the AFC North also provided one of the other must-see games. And oh my gosh, did Steelers Ravens deliver. Just, you couldn't have drawn up a more AFC North, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, black and blue sort of game. The Steelers defeat the Ravens 18-16 early on Sunday afternoon in a game that was exactly like what the score suggests. It's the second time this season the Steelers have won a game without scoring a touchdown. They did it in the season opener against Atlanta. They do it against Baltimore. Scored 18 points in both games. And I mentioned there was one exception, because, hey, this has been a division where kickers have gotten a lot of attention. Evan McPherson was a darling during the Bengals run to the Super Bowl a few years ago. Obviously, Justin Tucker, one of the best kickers to ever do it. But let's talk about Chris Boswell taking the crown on a day that Justin Tucker struggled. Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals in this game, both of them from typically within his range. Rough season for Justin Tucker. He's dropped to one of the worst percentages in the NFL. I think that's a really interesting conversation. A potential Hall of Fame caliber kicker, a franchise legend, a guy that deserves leeway to figure it out, but also a kicker, and kickers are only as good as their last kick. That's the old saying. And also guys that get replaced a lot. Now, again, I think that's a weighty conversation when you're talking about Justin Tucker, but when kicks can be the difference between first and third place in your division, that's an interesting conversation for the Baltimore Ravens to have. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Chris Boswell, no wondering about that. He's been one of the Steelers' MVPs. 6 of 6 from the day, on the day. Half of those were from 50-plus yards. He nailed a 57-yarder in this game. I loved Mike Tomlin's quote afterward. Said, "I'm tired of him getting player of the week. He's deserving of it, but it reminds us of our warts." Yeah, not going to call this a memorable performance from the Pittsburgh offense. They barely managed 300 yards. Not a whole lot going for the Steelers. Again, when your kicker is your only scorer, I think that tells the story. But I did appreciate, Russell Wilson did manage to hit one explosive to each of his receivers. He gets George Pickens for 37 yards, finds Darnell Washington on a 25-yard gain, just enough to get them into field goal range. Defense and special teams did the rest of this thing, man. Steelers hold Lamar Jackson to 207 passing yards. They hold Baltimore. They ran for 124 yards on the day, but Derrick Henry held to just 65 yards. He had a key fumble. An amazing play by Peyton Wilson in this game to intercept a ball that Justice Hill had in his hands, just outright took it away from him on the way to the ground. Inspired effort from the Steelers defense and special teams. It felt like a win that Mike Tomlin would draw up in his best dreams. And if the first quote wasn't great enough, he was asked how he felt about the Steelers offense. Perfect description. W. It is a W. The Steelers 8-2. And I think, if this was the only way they were winning games, maybe you would be concerned, because the Steelers offense has been their shortcoming for the better part of the last 5 years. But this is against Baltimore, and your defense is able to do that to Lamar Jackson, hold the Ravens to just 16 points, hold them out of the end zone way better than anybody else has done. The Ravens are the second highest scoring team in the league. I don't believe anybody else has held Baltimore below 20 points this season. I am looking at it live as I'm talking, and I'm right about that. Their other lowest total of the year, 20 points in the season opener against Kansas City. 16 points against this offense that has looked legitimately unstoppable for most of the year is incredible. And we've seen in previous weeks, we know the Steelers have been able to open it up with Russell Wilson at quarterback, 28 points last week, 37 points against the New York Jets. I am not worried. I'm not second guessing this at all. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are completely for real, 8-2, sitting on top of the division. They can win games in multiple ways. And I think that's the key difference. Previous iterations of the Pittsburgh Steelers had one narrow path to victory. And we've seen here in the month that Russell Wilson has been starting, they can outscore you. They can win games with their offense, but nothing makes Mike Tomlin happier than a good old-fashioned street fight. And that's what this was. And the Steelers get the better of the Ravens in an AFC North classic. I already can't wait for the rematch in mid-December. Last item on the Sunday 6, something I really felt like we needed to highlight, and it wasn't a classic finish or a game that looks like it'll have a huge impact on the playoff standings, at least not right now. But we needed to talk about the Saints defeating the Cleveland Browns 35-14. They get a second consecutive win in the Darren Rizzi era. But when something I've never seen before happens in the NFL, I feel like it's something you need to highlight in a show about the NFL. And that is what happened in the Superdome on Sunday, as Taysom Hill was the spark plug for the New Orleans Saints in a way that I just don't think I've ever seen before. Saints do everything. Jackknife utility man player went off against the Cleveland Browns. And I said utility man and jackknife and all that stuff because I don't even know what to call Taysom Hill. He's listed as a tight end, but I don't know very many tight ends who rush for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did catch 8 passes for 50 yards. That's very tight end like, so I get that. He also lined up under center for 8 snaps and played quarterback. He threw 2 passes. He got intercepted. He fumbled too. Just the wildest stat line, the wildest performance that I can remember in an NFL game. Taysom Hill for the New Orleans Saints touched the ball 17 times, accounted for 206 total yards of offense, scored 3 touchdowns, broke it wide open. I mean, the Saints were pulling away from the Browns as it was, but went to the house from way far out to put this thing away. The vast majority of his rushing yards coming on a 75-yard gain to really put this thing away. But just fun, man. The Saints have been fun since they made the coaching change to Darren Rizzi. I talked about it with Jonathan Vilma and Kenny Albert, who had the call. Well, guys, the Saints officially on a win streak under Darren Rizzi, but we got to talk about Taysom Hill, because even with all of the amazing things he's done during his career, this is an all-timer. I mean, where do you even start with a game like this from Taysom?
Well, Darren Rizzi told us earlier in the week, we are at our best when Taysom is involved in everything, and that was certainly the case today, Jonathan, right from the start.
Indeed. I mean, you look at Clint Kubiak and what a job he did creating, designing these plays for Taysom Hill. Some of them we've seen before, the power, quarterback powers to the left, quarterback keepers, but there were some that were just unique, especially him in the passing game. So when you look at Taysom Hill, it is going to be incredibly difficult for a defense to key in on him, because now when he's in the game, he can literally be at fullback, running back, quarterback, flexed out, tight end. He can do a basic play, or he may just go and do the spectacular play. It is extremely difficult for opposing defenses moving forward.
Taysom mentioned in y'all's post-game interview that the Saints took a hard look in the mirror after Dennis Allen was fired. It certainly looks like it. I mean, the record's still, there's a lot of work to be done, but this looks like a team that you can't really afford to write off in the NFC.
I'd say the biggest thing, Kenny, and watching this game and last game, they know how to bounce back from adversity. When there are ebbs and flows in a game like there always is, instead of them hanging their head as a team and then going into the tank, they're now finding ways to win, right? Cleveland started with a great drive to start the second half, tie the game up, and instead of the Saints going down, they rip off 21 points in the fourth quarter. So you're looking at a team that is now recognizing how good they can be, and they're bouncing back from those adverse situations and games.
A very fun game and a big win for the Saints. Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly was. Thank you.
I'm dating myself a little bit because this is slipping into the distant past, but Sunday reminded me of Taysom Hill, the college player at BYU, who was absolutely dominant back about a decade ago before he got to the league. I mean, this is a guy very, very Tim Tebow-esque, a guy who threw for 3,000 yards and 19 touchdown passes while also running for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns at BYU as a college player. To see him carry that over to the NFL, and I know he's done it here and there, obviously. Like, the guy's had a remarkable career and has been in the NFL for a minute at this point, but to see it all come together in one performance was really impressive. Almost as impressive as his humility when he talked about it with our Jen Hale.
The Saints now 2-2 in the Darren Rizzi era, and much of today's victory came on the shoulders of Taysom Hill. Taysom, what is working so well for this Saints squad under Rizzi right now?
I mean, I think anytime you have a little change like this, I think everyone kind of reevaluates. I think, you take it personally as well when something like this happens, and I think everyone took a long, hard look in the mirror, and we said we need to be better. And Riz has created some change and rejuvenated us a little bit, and I think we all kind of recommitted to be better.
Well, let's look at your production today. You played 5 different positions, 3 touchdowns. How do you keep it all straight when you're juggling so many different hats?
No, I don't know. Look, we got a great coaching staff. We got great players. What's up, bro? Appreciate you. Good luck. So when you have as much talent and, Alvin and Derek and all these guys, it makes it easy and creates opportunities for me, So everybody did their part. O-line played great. And I was the beneficiary of a lot of talent on the field.
The consummate pro, always handing off the credit. Taysom, amazing day. Congratulations. Enjoy the win and the bye week.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
It might be too little too late, mainly because of Atlanta's edge in division games, but I can't help but look at the NFC South standings and think The Saints are still kind of hanging around. They're 2 games out of first place. It's an uphill battle. You lose 7 games in a row. It's not going to be easy to make the playoffs. I read their probability sits at a 1% chance. But just looking at the standings, man, the way this team has played since getting a little bit healthier and making the switch to Darren Rizzi as head coach, at the very least, I'm interested in talking about and watching the New Orleans Saints, which was not the case for a solid chunk of the season. We will see how that ages and I don't know, just how wacky it can get. How many of these divisions can get wacky as we get toward the end of the season? That's my hope here as we move toward the latter half of the season. Cannot wait to finish off week 11. We still do have one more game, as always. That does it for the Sunday recap, but we will be back on Tuesday. We got the Battle of Texas, the Houston Texans going up to Arlington to face the reeling Dallas Cowboys. We'll be recapping that. We'll be talking to Jay Glazer, as we always do on Tuesdays. Also, going to look into the coaching carousel. We just talked about the Saints, their situation with Darren Rizzi. Take a look around the league at what jobs are open, what jobs might be open, who might be considered for those jobs. Fun thought exercise about the coaching carousel. We're going to look at that as well. Should be a really fun show. Make sure you're subscribed so it's in your feed. If you're not, go find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. We will be there on Tuesday morning, as we always are, leading up to Super Bowl 59. Cannot wait. What a day, y'all. What a day of NFL action. Let's do it again, 6 or 7 more times before this season is over. As always, I really appreciate it. This was a fun one. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to y'all soon.